hope you guys are doing well. If I sound a little crazy, I've been having a lot of wisdom tooth pain, so please try to bear with me if you can. Gum is swollen, and I'm gonna try to get that worked on as soon as I can. In the meantime, got a little bit of news on the tropics today, so we're gonna go ahead and get right into it. So, situation hasn't changed too much in some instances as far as the number of areas to watch or storms, so to speak. I am going to touch on a couple extra things this time around. Well, so for one, our tropical disturbances off of the West African coast towards the Cabo Verde Islands, the probability of it forming within the next 5 days has now gone up from 30% to 50%. Well, actually, I think it was 20 yesterday, so that's about 30% already. This is a pretty narrow window, but I'll give this a solid chance on becoming a storm. And then, of course, we have Earl, which is still maintaining at about 65 miles per hour at 998 millibars. Very slow strengthening right now, but that is expected to change. We will go into detail with that very shortly. Then we see Danielle here, which is sitting at 85 miles an hour, high in category 1, just meandering out here at sea. Then over towards the Eastern Pacific, and this is what really got me to do this video, because I honestly wasn't really planning on doing one, was Tropical Storm K, and what's really interesting about this storm is its path. So we'll go ahead and go to Cyclone here and take a look at all of these. We will start out with Tropical Storm Earl. And you can see here, that's a pretty big jump right there. Max speed predicted 105 knots. You're pushing towards a major hurricane right here. So let's get into the nitty gritty now. So we have Earl sitting as a 65 mile per hour tropical storm. And it is slowly forecasted to move northward from this point. But here's what I'm really outlining here. 105 knots, 120 miles an hour, 115, it makes a major hurricane. This will be the first major hurricane of the year should it get to that point. So let's go ahead and take a look at its current path right here. Nothing has really changed with that. If anything, just the intensity has. But if we look at the satellite imagery, it's maintaining, and at times it looks like it's trying to form something on that left side there, but there just isn't a lot to really go. It's just still having so much trouble with the wind shear over this area right now. But as it starts to make that turn to the north, it definitely will definitely get into a more favorable environment, which could lead to some increased strengthening and maybe some rapid strengthening too. So now, let's get to the moment you've been waiting on, and that is the cone intensity forecast. So here's where we are right now. This hasn't been updated in a bit, or actually no, it has been updated. I'm not up to speed when it comes to Atlantic Standard Time, or so to speak, but we have this becoming a hurricane about 8 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time on Wednesday, and then by Saturday morning we have the projection of it becoming a major hurricane with winds greater than 110 miles an hour. Excuse me. God, I hate how I sound right now. Feel free to laugh at me in the comments if you want. I'll take that. But other than that, nothing's really changed with Earl. So we'll start to go back towards the other storms here. I'm going to go ahead and cover Danielle. Danielle is going to start weakening from this point, I'm expecting. I think it's at the cutting edge of being on those warm waters that we've been looking at here. The further north, like I keep saying it, the further north you go into the Atlantic, the cooler the waters get. Wind shear is very light here, so this will hold on to its hurricane status for just a little longer, but the further east it goes, it's going to slowly lose its it's going to slowly start to lose its vigor, and eventually its tropical status altogether. This will become a subtropical entity, and then it'll be interesting to see where it goes from that point, because look at that. You can see how close it's getting towards the UK here. I'm a little bit concerned about that, but I'm not. I mean, as far as keeping its tropical characteristics, forget it. Not going to happen, but this still could cause problems. So it's going to be interesting to see where things go from that point. We have it maintaining hurricane strength up until Wednesday, based off of GMT time, and by Thursday, about midnight Thursday, that's when we get back to tropical storm status, and then quickly, 12 hours after that, it loses its tropical entity. It loses its tropical identity. It becomes post-tropical, and then it just kind of maintains from that point. The wind speed's going to be a little bit of a question here. It could very well maintain some wind speed, because due to the fact that it's in a light shear environment, but it's going to be hard to say. So we're going to scroll down just a little bit further. Oh, here we go. So by September 10th, 5 days from now, that's when we're looking at a post-tropical cyclone with winds at 45 knots, about 50 miles an hour, so to speak. Interesting to see how much further it'll weaken beyond that point as it gets closer to land. Because I do think this would be at least a close pass, if not a hit, towards England and the UK, Wales, towards that region. So to anyone over there in that area, keep your eyes open. Maybe some inclement weather coming your way. Okay, and now, here's something that has me really interested. We have Tropical Storm K, which has been starting to strengthen just off of the southwestern New Mexico coast. Our hurricane hunters are en route right now. And we have this potentially becoming a Category 2 hurricane and making a very close pass to Cabo San Lucas. So there may actually already be some hurricane watches and warnings issued right now. But if you look at the track right here, a lot of the models are having it come very close and maybe even making a close pass towards some of the lower 48 towards Los Angeles, which could bring rain and wind into play for areas like Los Angeles, San Diego, areas in Southern California. This would be great news, because I'm sure you guys have been baking for a while, and not to mention this area is very prone to wildfire, so maybe this will help with that. And you can almost kind of see it right now, even on the satellite imagery. You can see what looks to be the beginning of an eye forming right here. And then you can kind of see that buzzsaw motion, which is very typical of hurricanes, starting to form up around here. Increased convection on the northern side of the storm as well. Very, very good. Almost, I would say, textbook signs of a increasing tropical system, of a strengthening tropical system, I should say. All right. So let's go ahead and look at the intensity here. And indeed, we do have some tropical storm warnings. I do think these will be upgraded to hurricane warnings very soon. Especially since it's so close to Cabo San Lucas. And keep in mind, this cone does not indicate where the entire storm is going, just the eye wall. And more often than not, the eye is only about maybe 30-40 miles wide at best. So keep in mind that the storm is much bigger than this cone. So odds are, anyone over here that's hanging out in Cabo San Lucas over the next 5 days, be ready for plans to change, because this thing is going to make a very close pass. As of right now, it's questionable whether this thing makes a direct landfall, but you will be feeling impacts beyond the increased surf and rip currents. And then excuse me, whatever it does after that, coming into like next week, for example, so you get closer to California and some of the barrier islands, it's going to be interesting. I do think it's going to make a close pass, maybe miss, but there are a few models that indicate that a landfall is not out the question. So we'll go ahead and take a look at those spaghetti models. Just a moment. And, ooh, okay, so this is interesting here. A lot of the models have it going towards category 2, not surprising. But we also have a few that are trying to even push it towards major hurricane status, which is really interesting. But as far as this goes up to about 120 hours out, it's about 5 days. Makes sense. This thing quickly weakens as it pushes further out to the west, where the waters seem to be a little bit cooler. The eastern Atlantic has been pretty active, so it doesn't surprise me here that the further out to the north and west that we go, the waters are going to be a little less favorable for development. But we're more interested in the track than anything else right now. As of right now, earlier when I looked at this, because I was waiting for the 12Z to pop up on the GFS and the Euro, it looked like there was about 2 or 3 models that were potentially going to sling this thing close to California, if not hit it directly. That has since changed, and we have only one. But interestingly enough, a couple of members are now showing it making a landfall through Cabo San Lucas and heading into Arizona, which would still lead to not only rainfall for Southern Cal, but now we're bringing Arizona into the equation as well. It'll be interesting to see if more members get on board with this or not. I'm not super familiar with the upper level winds around that region, so I'm going to have to do a little bit more research, but I'm going to get back to that. But now we've gone through there, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the tropical Atlantic, and we will go on from that point. So, here are two, here's Hurricane Danielle, and here's Tropical Storm Earl. Get a good view of those, but we're going to also take a look at our new tropical wave here and see how this performs over the next few days. Oops, got a little ahead of myself, or a little ahead of the computer. This does look like it tries to get its act together and become a named storm. Dang, this thing does not want to work with me here. Okay, let's try it again. So we're heading about 96 hours out. That's 4 days from now exactly, and we can see this making a push towards getting below that 1,000 millibar threshold. This, I'd say that there's about a 50-50 chance this becomes a named storm, but once it gets further and further to the north, this thing gets kicked out to sea. No major threat to land from the looks of it, and we move this along. We have a small piece of energy coming along, but nothing really looking concrete at the moment. This, of course, will quickly change, but towards the end of the run, we get another one, another little piece of energy, about 354 hours out. Hard to latch onto that with how far out it is, but this looks like it has some promise. We'll have to watch this with bated breath, because when you get about 200 hours out on a forecast, really 120 hours out, things can get wacky really fast. So we're going to go ahead and look at the operational European runs today. We're not going to look at the ensembles, because I mean, it's pretty black and white here as to what we have going on, and Euro has a very different picture that we're painting here compared to the GFS already. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at what we have right now. So this is where we are. Here is Danielle, here's Earl. Move this along, and it kind of has Earl just sitting there for a little bit longer, which could lead to it strengthening that much more. And I gotta go back track just a little bit, but are back to where we were, about 30 hours out. Here's our next tropical low right here. Excuse me. And we'll watch that get kicked out to sea, and then this next tropical low looks like the Euro has it a little bit stronger, and maybe really starts to get its act together late. Wow, actually, this Euro has it becoming a hurricane. The operational does, at least. And then, if that's Earl right there, that's an interesting run. Because this piece of because these looks like an additional piece of energy forms right here. That's very interesting. Because it looks like if I were to able to scroll up just a little bit more, we would still see part like a trace of Earl right there. I don't know if that's Earl moving back down south or a new piece of energy. It's very interesting. And then look at this. This is a bit bold, I would say. About 174 hours out. Dang, it feels like something's in my throat. But 174 hours out, we have this low that's coming off of Africa here. And it's already at 999 millibars. I'm not sure if I agree with that, so to speak. It's very interesting, but I'm going to say that that's a bit of a bogus run. But if that really does happen, she's Louise. Cabo Verde is going to have a lot of trouble on their hands. But towards the end of the model run, this becomes a 984 millibar storm, which is almost indicative of a major hurricane or borderline major hurricane. It's crazy to think about, but that's the end of the model run there for that part for the Atlantic Basin. We'll take a look at the Caribbean as well, because anything that pops up in that region is going to be the greatest threat for any larger landmass areas. So we'll go ahead and look at the Euro first this time. And we'll start off by taking a look at Earl, which will take his sweet time moving off to sea. And then we have these little pieces of energy that try to form up in the Gulf. Don't really get their act together. I think this is just going to result in a lot of rain making for the southeast. But as of right now, there's no major pieces of energy. Oh boy, I hate when this thing does this. But as of right now, the Caribbean looks like it's going to stay quiet. You may get a system that pops off on the edge of one of these cold fronts, especially since we have the jet stream pushing a little bit further to the south and east right now. So that's going to make for an interesting dynamic, so to speak. But as of right now, I'm not really latching on to this too tightly. Okay. This is about the time frame that we're in right now, and we can roll this forward. GFS has Earl moving out a little bit faster, but still has it as a major hurricane, maybe even a category 4. This is kind of crazy. So we have a pretty strong upper level low here that's going to cause some major weather for the southeast, most likely in the form of rain, thunderstorms, very tropical downpours from the look of it. But still, nothing really concrete taking shape in the Caribbean or the Gulf right now. Well, wait a minute. Let me not speak too soon. I do see a little piece of energy that tries to develop, but that's towards the end of the model run, so there's not much credibility to that. I mean, we were expecting it to kind of pick up a little. We were based off yesterday's video, and I'll leave a link in the top right-hand corner. We mentioned that there were a few pieces of energy that float about around here, but that mainly was on the ensembles. But I do take note of it being on the operational run as well. We'll see if this holds up with how far out we are. So it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds, if it unfolds at all. But this is it for this video here. My tooth is killing me, I'm not going to lie. It's kind of hard to speak, but I do this for you guys that do watch, and hopefully we can expand the audience. But this has been Ty Metalhead Weatherman, and I will see you guys in the next video.